Week 13 of the regular season would feature the Steelers back in Ohio. This time, a quick 45-minute flight to the city of Cincinnati.
Hey man, together. Whatever it takes, one fight at a time, locked in, doing it together, man. Let's go get this thing. Let's go. Know what we're fighting for. Let's go. Steelers on 3, 1, 2, 3, Steelers.
For the third time in 15 days, the Steelers were preparing to face off with another AFC North opponent.
It's always this group. Let's go.
We ain't doing no talking today.
Nope.
Punish these boys for 60 minutes, fellas.
Hey, man, it don't matter what you do, you dominate the line of scrimmage. We control it up front. If we gonna win, it's because of us.
Let's do it. Let's make it a movie today. Let's do it. Let's make it a cinema.
With a chill in the air, the Steelers were hoping to cool down the Bengals' red-hot offense.
That's the way to work. Come on. He's hit that sack. The Steelers win the football game. Let's go. Come get it. You know what it is.
This one is in the history books.
Here we go.
Welcome to the 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show. I'm Missy Matthews. The Steelers kicked off the last month of the year with a third straight division opponent. But what transpired in Cincinnati last Sunday didn't feel like typical December football in the AFC North. To explain why and how history was also made, let's welcome in Bob Pompeani, who's standing by with Coach Tomlin. Guys.
Missy, thank you very much. Steelers coming off a big win on the road to get to 9 wins, 3 losses, 2-game lead over the Baltimore Ravens at this point. Head coach Mike Tomlin is here. Did you expect to be involved in the highest scoring game, not only in this series, but in the NFL this season?
You know, I'd never anticipate being in a game like that, to be quite honest with you. Maybe it's just my defensive background. But certainly when you're playing the likes of Joe Burrow and Chase and Higgins, you're capable of being in a game like that. So I can't say that I'm totally shocked. I just hate to admit it as a defensive expert.
But going into it, you knew you had to score some points, just the way Burrow had played. I'm wondering about, it seemed like there were middle of the field availabilities more so than ever. Was that something you guys saw in preparation of the game? In other words, running backs delayed coming into the middle of the field. Turns out to be yak yards afterwards.
You know, I think it was kind of a result of their desire to play spot drop zones early. They had some turnover in the secondary. They've experienced some attrition in the secondary. As recently as last week, DJ Turner got hurt and went on IR. And so they were playing some soft zones, if you will, early, and we had to display patience and a willingness to take what they were giving us in an effort to maybe be more aggressive in terms of attacking them more vertically later in the game. And that's what we did. We showed our patience and willingness to do that. It probably forced them to do some other things schematically, and it gave us opportunities a little later in the game to get yards in bigger chunks.
The other thing you guys did was respond quickly. I mean, there was a pick six right off the bat, controversial maybe in nature how it happened, but as a head coach, I'm sure you were glad that you get right back on there and go down the field and score. And every time it seemed like you needed to do that, you did.
Yeah, I think that our ability to drive the ball and particularly in response to game circumstance was at a very, very high level. That's the component of complementary football that we don't talk about directly. We say catchphrases like complementary football, but it's about responding to adversity, whether or not the offense, Cincinnati's offense goes down and scores, and then we have to respond, or we throw a pick six. The response is appropriate, and I just like the mindset of the collective and the work we were able to get done in complementary like circumstances.
It was an unusual game in the sense that you only punted once, but also you only got the third down 9 times. I guess that's a good sign for you as an offense that you don't even get the third down in most cases.
Yeah, we in a big component of moving it with fluidity is avoiding negativity, and I thought largely offensively, particularly compared to the prior week in Cleveland where we had false starts on the first third and short. We had a false start on P&10 on the next series, I think the second series of the game. Some of those self-inflicted wounds that put you behind the chains and make you somewhat predictable, we were able to avoid. And when you're able to avoid those things, then it positions you to be aggressive and efficient in play. And we were those things.
Russell Wilson had a big day with over 400 yards passing. It was one of his best days ever. What has he done to maybe even do things that you didn't think were possible? I don't know if you did or didn't. A lot of people in the national media thought this guy couldn't do this again.
You know, I'm not surprised by the positive things that he's doing because I see his day-to-day work, and I know others don't. And that was a component of my decision-making in terms of going to him. When you're with these guys every day and you see the intimate details of their prep, what they're willing to do along with their capabilities, it minimizes the guesswork. If you're around him every day, if you see him work, if you see his talents, if you see his preparation, if you see his level of communication and his commitment to getting everyone on the same page, all those things elevate the floor and create an environment where performances like that happen.
Your defense, I mean, you could look at it and say, okay, you gave up yards and points, but just about every team that plays Joe Burrow in Cincinnati does. But they made big plays in big moments. Is that the kind of stuff that separates your defense from others, just winning that turnover battle?
You know, we got a desire to hunt the ball. We got a ball turnover culture that we don't just provide lip service to. We work at it daily and have since the very beginning of team development. And it has to show up for us in games like that. For us, it's about understanding when we're in those heightened environments and taking advantage of those opportunities. First, putting our guys in the schematic position to do so, and then from a matchup perspective, challenging guys to close the door. We were really up front last week with how we challenged Herbig, for example, because we knew in one-dimensional passing circumstances they were going to help in terms of protecting TJ. And so we talked about that all week in a real weighty moment in the game. Herbig came off the edge against a two-man surface and got a sack fumble, which we returned for a touchdown. And, you know, that's the type of preparation and then ultimately play that has to happen when you're playing somebody like Joe and company.
Steelers win big in Cincinnati, 44 points, biggest output of the season. When we come back, we're going to talk about a rematch, a quick turnaround with the Cleveland Browns. It's all coming up when we continue here on the Mike Tomlin Show. Missy, back to you.
All right, thanks so much, Bob. And that win over Cincinnati moves the Steelers to 9-3 on the season. Pittsburgh now has a 1.5 game lead over the Ravens for the top spot in the AFC North. Still to come, Merrill Hodge grabs the remote and heads over to the telestrator to show us how to properly defend Browns quarterback Jameis Winston. The 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show will be right back.
Welcome back to the 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show.
Well, Sunday will mark Cleveland's first road divisional game this season, but trips to Pittsburgh haven't gone so well for them as the Steelers have beat the Browns 20 straight home regular season games. For more on round 2 of this matchup, let's send it back to Bob and Coach. Guys.
Hey, Missy, we're talking about the Cleveland Browns now. Just got done with a game with them just a few weeks ago, and now this is a rematch. Coaches talk about playing a team twice in a 3-week span. I know it's AFC North football. You guys are familiar with one another. It doesn't normally happen this way. Advantages, disadvantages.
You know, I don't know that there's any disadvantages. I really don't know that there's any advantages, to be quite honest with you. Every year we go into the season knowing that we're going to get 2 shots at division opponents. The second one just coming rather quickly. You know, maybe some of the health issues and player availability issues that were present in game 1 may continue to be present in game 2. But other than that, I think there's a knowing and an understanding regarding divisional play. And, you know, you're going to build upon the positives that transpired in game 1 and work to minimize the negatives and try to forecast what your opponent might do. And so from that standpoint, I think it's business as usual.
Jameis Winston had one of those games on Monday night. Was kind of a full Jameis Winston experience in that he can light it up as he did with almost 500 yards, but he can throw the interception here and there. You saw him once. What have you learned from that effort in Cleveland to take to this game?
It's more the same, as you mentioned. Even in preparation, I think in this setting last time, I described him as a gunslinger because he has arm talent and he's a risk taker in pursuit of victory. He's a big-time competitor. And so, you know, he's going to take some shots at you. You better be prepared to take some shots at him. You better catch the ball when given an opportunity. And a classic example of that is, you know, Baltimore had some opportunities to get him late in the football game and didn't. And it was the difference in the game. And as you can see in Denver on Monday night, they had some opportunities to get him late in the game, and that's why they were able to close the door. And so I got a lot of respect for him. He's a former first pick in the draft. There's not a throw that he can't make on the field, whether it's arm strength or touch or trajectory. He's got it all, and he's a competitor to boot. And so he has our attention in a big-time way preparing for this game.
They had some big plays in that Denver game, and he seems to be very comfortable with those kinds of throws. Jerry Jeudy went off against his old team. They have Moore, they have Njoku, they have a lot of different guys, and I think they were targeted like 44 times. Did you expect that many passes in that game?
Not surprised at all. And I probably was prepared for that if weather wasn't an issue the first time we played them. You know, when you have red paint, you paint your barn red. That is Winston's style of play. And so I imagine that they're gonna lean into his comfort, and they certainly have the eligibles to do it. They've had an overage at receiver all year. Ever since they acquired Jeudy, they were shopping Cooper, and they still run very deep at the position, especially when you consider the unique talents of Njoku in terms of what he's capable of doing in the passing game vertically, especially for a tight end. And so they've got some eligibles. They got a gunslinger. I'm not going to be surprised if they throw it a lot, certainly.
The man you call Mr. Chubb, he hasn't been featured all that much, and it's kind of interesting because he normally is the guy that you want to focus on. Only 9 attempts the other night, but he has, I don't know if it's an injury related based on coming back from that injury. Do you expect him to be a bigger focal point in this game?
I know we better be prepared for Mr. Chubb. I think he's got so much respect for his run abilities and style, his patience. They've been rotating him as he's come back from injury. Maybe it's health related, maybe it's conditioning related, maybe it's just simply the evolution of Ford, who has had some really good moments in 2023 and 24. Can't say enough about his open grass running, his ability to get on the perimeter and turn plays into big gains. He was the #1 big play explosion back in his draft class when he came out of the University of Cincinnati. And so I think probably more than anything, they got 2 real capable backs, and they try to feature both of them in an effort to keep defenses off balance and keep both guys fresh. And so that's a delicate balance that we have to weigh in preparation for this game. How do we deal with that 2-headed monster, including Mr. Chubb, and also protect ourselves against the vertical, aggressive passing mindset and talents of Winston?
The last time out, Myles Garrett had a pretty good day at the office. How do you prevent that from happening in this rematch?
You put it mildly. Yeah, pretty good day. We got to prevent the bomb from going off, you know? Such is life in the AFC North, you know? I just think dynamic edge rushers have been a component of this division for a long, long time. But like I said last time, we won't be doing anything unique that he doesn't see week in and week out. The dynamic rushers, they see chips in body position and multiple tight end man surfaces on play action pass just about every week. I know that TJ does. It doesn't stop them from being dynamic players. That's why they're dynamic players. And so aside from the schematics, we got to have a great mindset. We got to be big-time competitive. When you're playing Myles, man, both tackles have got to be ready because they move them around quite a bit. And so I'm excited about watching our guys respond to that.
One of the many subplots in this rivalry, Pittsburgh and Cleveland coming at you 1 o'clock on KDKA. We have that game for you. And when we come back, Missy, we'll have Mike Tomlin's keys to this matchup. It's coming up later.
All right, Bob, well, you can add Nick Herbig into the conversation with TJ Watt and Myles Garrett when it comes to strip sacks this season. They're the only 3 players in the league that have 3 strip sacks so far. TJ Watt, by the way, has 23 since 2017. Myles Garrett only has 19, coming in second. Coming up next on the show, it's time for this week's playbook with Merrill Hodge. He breaks down how defenses can successfully attack the Browns' new QB. Now it's time for a Yinz Chat predictive question. Will Russell Wilson have over or under 260.5 total passing yards on Sunday? Head to the Steelers mobile app and answer for a chance to win a football signed by Russell Wilson. And remember to play every week for a chance at new prizes and a chance at a VIP trip to the 2025 NFL Draft in Green Bay. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show.
Cleveland was 1-6 with Deshaun Watson as their quarterback, and with Jameis Winston as their starter, they have gone 2-3. But this past week, Winston broke the team's franchise record for most passing yards in a single game, while also throwing 3 interceptions, 2 of which were returned for touchdowns. Merrill Hodge dials up how defenses can make Winston make bad decisions.
Hi everyone, welcome into the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex for the Acrisure Playbook. Okay, it's round 2 against the Cleveland Browns. Could we have inclement weather? Irrelevant. Let's take a look at some things that they actually did very well defensively in the first matchup. They actually got some pressures. They had some design blitzes that get one free defender to the quarterback, and then they created matchups. So we'll start with getting one free defender. It almost is like a running play where you got to have guys blocking or occupying, and you're getting one guy free. The very first play of the game, they did it, and they did it really well. And I want to show you, because not many teams can do this and do it well. In this case, the Steelers do a great job of getting Landon Roberts free to the quarterback. Number 50 is who they want. He's their designated free defender. So everybody has to occupy blockers, and they do a perfect job of that on the first play of the game. Once they snap the ball, everybody occupies people so that Landon Roberts can come free. You can see this. I mean, this is a perfect job. Now, Jameis Winston does identify it after the fake, but this is where Cam Hayward comes into play. I mean, he's doing his job of occupying people, but he's got great instincts. He's not sleeping. He's not saying, okay, my job is done. He realizes the pass is coming his way, and he does a great job of getting up and knocking the ball down. I mean, this tells you, just what kind of player he is. We talk about the way he gets after the quarterback, how he handles the run, but these instinctive plays is what makes him unique and special. So it's a great design, executed perfectly, and they get the ball knocked down. Now, later in the game, they do kind of a similar concept. It's not getting an individual guy free, it's creating a matchup. So Patrick Queen right here, number 6, what they want to do is get him matched up on the back. Because the Steelers are thinking, okay, number 6 is better than number 34, and I'd agree with that. A lot of linebackers are better than a lot of backs. Not a lot of good blocking backs in the NFL. So that's the matchup they want. So you got to get everybody to do their job to create that matchup. And they do a really good job of that, creating that matchup for Queen. They get him on the back. It's exactly what they wanted to do. So everybody's occupied. Nobody can help out. Queen is on the back. And Jameis Winston knows he's in trouble right now. He can feel it. He can feel that pressure. And then we got to bring Cam Hayward into the place. And again, he's doing his job, but he doesn't go to sleep. I mean, he is still realizing how can he be effective. He ends up knocking the ball down again here. Even though he can't get there, he sees Jameis Winston go to throw it. So he gets his hands up and he knocks the ball down. I mean, again, Cam Hayward making plays when this play is really not designed for him. Queen in the matchup, he wins. They get the pressure that they needed. Now, if they can continue to build on this, round 2 is going to be a lot different game.
You could catch more of this season's playbooks on the team's official YouTube page. Well, the Browns edged the Steelers in round 1 of this matchup. But for a repeat performance, the odds are in favor of Pittsburgh. The Steelers have not been swept by the Browns since 1988. That's 32 straight seasons, the longest streak by any team in NFL history. Let's send it back to Bob and Coach for your keys to this game, presented by your neighborhood Ford store.
All right, Missy, thanks very much. It's a big game once again in the AFC North. Steelers with a rematch against Cleveland. Coach Tomlin, let's talk about some keys to this game, and one of them is limiting Myles Garrett. The other part of it is TJ seems to see a lot of double teams. Both of those components. Dan Moore responded very well last week against Hendrickson, as you said earlier in this show. Does he have to do something different in this game against Myles Garrett?
More of the same. Certainly, we're going to do some schematic things to help him. But there's going to be moments where you got to stand up and compete. And, if you want to dwell at the tackle position for any length of time in the North, you get accustomed to that. A guy like Dan has been in it since he was a pup. He knows it. Broderick is getting accustomed to it. And so I'm excited about seeing those guys perform. But I think, one of the key components for us is to stay out of one-dimensional circumstances that kind of highlight that component of the matchup. And so how do you do that? We got to do a good job of remaining penalty-free. We can't let our emotions get the best of us. We had a high energy game against them last time we played. We were highly penalized at times in different phases of the game in our last outing. And so from a team perspective, we can't kick our own butt. We can't be highly penalized. We got to stay on schedule in the effort to maybe minimize circumstances where a dynamic guy like Miles generally does what he does.
Last week they wanted to throw the ball all over the place, and they did. How do you prevent that from happening, and what sort of game do you want to see unfold at Acrisure?
Well, we'll bring 90 and 56 and 51 and 97, like guys like that with us that better do a job of minimizing that, not only in play but in terms of mentality. I think when you deal with our four-man rush, you better be prudent about how and when you throw it. And so those are decisions that they have to make. I'm focused on our readiness, that collective that I mentioned, and a coordinated coverage group behind it. Because if you want to minimize the passing game, it's both. It's a high-octane rush. It's coordinated and calculated coverage behind it, and we're excited about putting that formula together this week.
Real quick, I want to ask you about Joey Porter. He has the bounce-back ability. I mean, we've seen it before. He plays tight man-to-man coverage when he's on somebody, but they also tend to call those things once in a while. You expect him to bounce back, especially if they're going to throw the ball quite a bit.
Most certainly. You mentioned it. A part of the equation that makes him the dynamic young player that he is his mindset. He's a big-time competitor. He doesn't turn things down. I expect a big bounce-back week from him.
You got to have that short memory, right? Like goalies in hockey or anyone else.
It is very necessary, like a great 40 time in a return man.
Coach, thanks. All the best.
No doubt.
All right, that's going to wrap up our program today. For Missy Matthews and head coach Mike Tomlin, I'm Bob Pompeani. Thanks for joining us here on the 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show. Tomorrow, it's Pittsburgh, Cleveland. We start our coverage at 11:30 a.m. with our pregame show. We'll see you then, and see you next week.